Did you know that George A. Romero, aka the Dead Father, was working on his own zombie video game back in 2004 to be released in 2006? Well, you do now. In honor of the upcoming horror video game documentary Terabytes coming out in April, pre-order now, use my affiliate link. I saw this as an opportune time to talk about City of the Dead, the zombie game that we would have gotten from the Dead Father himself. Now, in terms of the term Dead Father, for those of you guys who are not zombie fans or horror fans and are wondering who this gentleman is right here, he is responsible for what is known as the Dead Trilogy. Without him, no modern zombie. He is what defined what the modern zombie is supposed to be, with Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. Yeah, we don't need to talk about these other three. No. So around 2004, it was revealed that George Romero was working on his very own zombie video game titled City of the Dead, with none other than freaking American McGee. And if you're wondering who the hell that is, Alice Madness Returns. I mean, the man had some other hits like Grimm and Scrapland, and Bad Day LA is actually pretty bad, but he worked heavily with id Software, which was responsible for Doom and Quake. So we already have a really great track record to go off of. So with two legends at the helm, City of the Dead could only be a surefire hit, correct? Well, unfortunately, friends, it was canned before it was ever released. The game itself was going to be far more of an action-oriented game than your traditional survival horror, as you were somebody trapped in a city, it was overrun by zombies, and your objective was essentially just to shoot out all the zombies that you could. He was going for a more arcade-style feeling, as opposed to the classic Resident Evil formula. Actually, the developer attached to the game, Hip Games, developers of the underrated cover-based shooter Kill Switch, and Dog's Life, proclaimed that what they were trying to do with this game was basically combine elements of Resident Evil and Soldiers of Fortune in order to create what would be the Burnout of the shooter genre. Okay, there's been a couple of storyboards, and there's some renders and some different little gameplay snippets in that. Actually, there's a full-on E3 trailer if you want to check that out, which actually shows some pretty awesome ragdoll physics. Max Payne level awesome. This game was set in George Romero's Dead universe so much that actually Tom Savini was not only going to be modeled as one of the main characters, he was going to be a voice actor in the game. Oh, but who's Tom Savini? I'm just going to assume you're not a horror fan at this point. Like, you got this far, and yet... It's interesting when you look at some of this concept art and you notice that they took a lot from the past, but also games that followed took a lot of inspiration from it. Or coincidentally, who knows? Like the combination of the shovel and the shotgun, like the combination of weapons, reminds me a hell of a lot of the weapon combinations that you get in Dead Rising 2. Or this Reaper electric lance upgrade right here. Take a look at this and tell me what it reminds you of. Yeah, I'm definitely getting the Wonder Waffle from Call of Duty Zombies vibe with that. Also, looking at this character model, really? Might be a little more than a coincidence there. Just saying. So with all this being said, why did this game get canceled? What happened to it? Well, simply put it, its publisher went under. And they were having a really hard time trying to find a new publisher. And this is really crazy at the time, considering we had the Scarface video game come out just 2 years later, and that ended up being a modest success. And then just several years after that, we had a Ghostbusters game, which struggled to find a publisher, mind you, and yet found a publisher and came out and was a modest hit. So sadly, we never got George Romero's video game. And we never did get his Resident Evil film adaptation, which, by the way, would have been one of the, if not the greatest video game to film adaptations ever. George Romero has still solidified himself in history as a Dead Father, and that will never change to Kingdom Come. He will always be George A. Romero.